Good morning! Good morning! Wow. So, yesterday, I was having trouble. And you may have seen me at that moment when I was having some trouble. I was pushing a cart of 1,500 ceramic butterflies from our office over here over to Miss Stringer's room. And while the cart was heavy, that's not why I was having trouble. The trouble was what the ceramic butterflies represented. It was the fact that each one represents the life of a child extinguished by hate and prejudice. It was the fact that I was only pushing 1,500 ceramic butterflies, which is hardly a drop in the bucket when you think of the 1.5 million children killed in the Holocaust and the countless others killed in political and ethnic violence in the last century alone. Then something happened, and this is absolutely 100% true. Although it may sound like it's a metaphor for some cliched inspirational story, but it is not. This actually happened right over there. As I was pushing the cart up the hill behind you, over there, and I kid you not, an actual butterfly appeared. It fluttered around the cart, almost like it was saying hello, if butterflies could say hello, and then it flew up towards the student pavilion. And if you don't believe me, ask Miss Stewart, because Miss Stewart was there. And she saw this happen too, right, Miss Stewart? Miss Stewart? Yes, Miss Stewart. Oh, there she is. And Miss Stewart said yes. This happened. So when the butterfly was gone, I thought how strange it was that in 15 years that I've been at Country Day, I had no memory of ever seeing a butterfly at Country Day. And how crazy it was that the first butterfly that I'd ever seen at Country Day happened at that particular moment. But when I thought about it more, I realized I'm probably wrong. I'm sure I've seen many butterflies at Country Day, but until yesterday, I just hadn't noticed them. Now, as a committed agnostic, I'm 100% sure I don't know if I believe in signs from the universe. But I do know what I believe in. I believe in love, I believe in dignity, I believe in hope, and I believe in humanity. I believe we can face our history, and that if we face our history, we can do the really difficult part, which is to face ourselves. This morning, Dr. Parrish will read a letter from a school in Germany written directly to us in celebration of our two schools collaborating over the Butterfly Project. Dr. Parrish will then introduce Pastor Karen Boy of the Deutsche Kirche. Today, on this 80th anniversary of the horror of Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, we are privileged to hear from our German friends about how they face their history and themselves. May their words grant us the strength to do the same, so we too may face our history, and that we may too face ourselves. Dr. Parrish?
Thank you, Mr. Schulman. Thank you to all of you for being here and being so attentive this morning. So as Mr. Schulman said, I'm going to read a letter that comes from a town outside of Berlin called Cottbus, where my partner Steve, son of Rose Schindler's father, was born and eventually deported. And this school was attended by Steve's uncle before he was rounded up and deported out of Germany. And this school is also going to participate in the Butterfly Project this year, and they're going to time it to International Holocaust Remembrance Day and hopefully become our sister school. So here's the letter in English. Dear students and teachers of La Jolla Country Day School, today on the opening of your Butterfly Project installation, our hearts and thoughts are with you. The Bewegt Grundschule Cottbus is happy to join you in the Butterfly Project. We, the children of former enemies, are connected in our aim to remember and honor the children who were killed in the Holocaust. It is our responsibility never to forget and to stand up against anti-Semitism, intolerance, and hatred. For us, butterflies are symbols of compassion and hope. The creation of your butterflies on November 9th coincides with the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht, which marked the beginning of the systematic prosecution of Jewish people by the Nazis. On the night of November 9th, 1938, the synagogue of Cottbus was burnt down, In the following 7 years, many Jewish Cottbussers were deported and killed. Today, Cottbus is a town of about 100,000 inhabitants. Cottbus has a Jewish community again. Its members are mostly immigrants from the former Soviet Union, and a new synagogue was opened in 2015. Our school, the Bewegt Grundschule, is a small primary school with about 130 children from grade 1 to 6. The school was built in 1885 and was originally named after Martin Luther. Upon entering Bewegt Grundschule, you'll see a photo of a boy named Alfred Schindler displayed in the lobby. In 1938, 10-year-old Alfred Schindler was a student of Martin Luther School. On the morning of October 28th, the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, arrested Alfred Schindler right out of school because he was Jewish. Together with his parents and younger siblings, he was deported to Poland the next day. Of the Schindler family, only Alfred and his brother Max survived the Holocaust. They immigrated to the USA and came to live in San Diego. In 2014, Stephen Schindler, Max's son, first visited our school. He told us the history of his family and showed us the Stolperstein, which are brass stepping stones in the pavement in front of the Schindler's former home in Cottbus. They memorialize his grandparents and his Aunt Cecilia. In January 2015, Stephen's parents, Max and Rose Schindler, visited Bewegt Grundschule, for this was a most memorable day. These two amazing people, who both suffered in concentration camps and lost many of their relatives in the Holocaust, met us Germans with great warmth and without hate. We will always keep in mind what Rose Schindler told us that day. Please remember what happened in the Holocaust and make sure something terrible like that cannot happen again. We are all equal human beings. Don't let anybody deny this. We can live together in peace. With this in mind, we are very alarmed to see intolerance, racism, and nationalism growing again in Cottbus. Still, the majority of the city's residents want their town to be safe and peaceful for all people of all nationalities, races, and religions. We have to stand up to confront those who try to infect our society with hatred, and for those whom remembering and honoring the victims of the Holocaust is shameful. The Bewegt Grundschule's butterfly installation will be installed on January 25th, timed to coincide with International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's our responsibility to stand up for tolerance and humanity. The Bewegt Grundschule is the first German school to join the Butterfly Project. We hope that many schools in Cottbus and all over Germany will follow and help to spread the ideas of the Butterfly Project, the ideas of remembrance and hope. Signed, Anna Legnet, Managing Director of the Bewegt Grundschule in Cottbus, in the name of all students and teachers at the school. So that's really heartening that we have this solidarity across the oceans with former enemies, and that there's a movement afoot around the world to combat intolerance and hate and make the world a better place for all of us. It's now my pleasure and honor to introduce Pastor Boya, who comes to us today to talk about Kristallnacht and the meaning of the Butterfly Project. She comes to us on behalf of the German consulate in Los Angeles. She was ordained 30 years ago in the Evangelical Church in Germany. Her professional journey led her to several different capacities in congregations of various sizes in England, Germany, and the United States. She's taught for many years at seminary and created and hosted a weekly morning show on German national television, a channel called Sat Eins. Settling in Southern California in 2001, Pastor Boya became a rostered ordained clergy of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and is currently serving under call of the Pacific Synod. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation to speak to you this very morning. It's very meaningful to me, and it became even more significant the more I approached this topic. And the topic is the 9th of November, 1938. It began as harmless as today, a gorgeous day with sunshine, and turned into a day that will always be etched into the memory of many, in particular of the Jewish people. And this is the story behind. In 1938, my parents were 9 and 10 years old. You might think, okay, children, what would they know? But you know yourself, when you were 9 or 10 years old, you weren't stupid. You really realized what was going on in the world, and even if adults wanted to protect you from what was going on, you realized something was not right. So it was for my parents. My mother grew up in Danzig. That's Poland now. And Danzig had a great, bigger Jewish community of long traditions coming from the 1700s. My grandfather and my great-grandfather were working for the railway with a lot of Polish and also Jewish co-workers. They saw it coming. In Danzig, the pogrom started almost a year earlier than the pogrom night itself. By the way, it's called Reichskristallnacht, like crystal glass. I think that's a euphemism. It sounds nice. Who would be against crystal glass? But what actually happened was that the ugly face of a dictatorship began to show its face in a way people will never forget. If you Google Reichskristallnacht, you will read what happened. The facts are out there. 7,500 stores and businesses shattered, Jewish homes ransacked, schools, hospitals as well. Jews beaten and assaulted, over 1,400 synagogues destroyed, burned to the ground. More than 30,000 Jewish men arrested and taken to concentration camps. 91 Jews murdered in one night, only because of their tradition, their background, and who they were. Why did that happen? It did not start overnight. The writing was on the walls. Increasing nationalism, people fearing for their jobs, concerned about the economy. People realized that things weren't right and they did not live the life they wanted to live in Germany. That's how Hitler rose to power, playing on the fears and the worries of the people, igniting fear in people who used to live together in peace and harmony, being good neighbors to one another, until they realized that the neighbor was the other, the unknown, who came from elsewhere, who immigrated from the East. The superiority of the white race is what brought Adolf Hitler to power. We know better today that there is no superiority of race. We are all people under this sky, on this globe. And we know that if we do not succeed in living together in peace and harmony, striving on one another's gifts, we know if that does not work, then there will be wars and struggle, and the least and the last of societies will suffer. In Nazi Germany, the Germans picked the Jews to be the ones who can be blamed for almost everything. In 1933, there were only 500,000 Jews living in Germany. And you might wonder, how is it then that after the World War, the number 6 million Jews died? How did this number show up? It is because the Nazis succeeded in going all over Europe, incarcerating, killing, exterminating people of Jewish descent. 6 million dead, and 1.5 million among them children. How did Germany ever recover from this, you might ask? Is there hope if a country was so divided between us and them, blaming them for what's not right for me? How did that happen, you might ask? I can tell you that up till now, there is not one event, not one political decision that is not colored, tainted, and worked through by the history of Germany. Just remember the influx of all the refugees. Over 1 million people in 1 year alone. That is because of Germany's history. The people in Germany knew what they did when they closed the border and excluded certain population segments from being part of the whole. So they opened the doors for people who suffered elsewhere and were seeking a different life. In the letter from Cottbus, there was something else mentioned. Stolpersteine, stumbling stones. They look a little bit like this. Apparently just stones used for pavement. But on the surface, they have little brass plates. There was an artist who started to make them. On the brass plate, there's a text, always starting with "Here lived." And then there's at least one name, sometimes more. And then the dates of those lives. Men, women, children. And those stumbling stones are embedded in the pavement in front of houses, remembering those who perished because of the Nazi regime, remembering those forever. And as of August this year, there are 70,000 such stumbling stones all over Europe. Many of them in my own hometown, which is Hamburg. Again, how can we get together after we were so divided? Foremost, by remembering and keeping the memory in front of us. Not 24/7, but at occasions which seem to be right. Like a day like today. So I come here pointing to the history of the nation I was born in. Why remember? Because when the moral and ethical grounding gets lost, we need something and someone to keep us in the realm, in the framework that makes up our life together, no matter where we came from, no matter where we were born, no matter what our traditions are, no matter what our faith is, no matter what our skin color is. Living together needs intentionality. And remembering is one way of life together. And then stories. Stories, lives, stories which matter, stories shared. And the one who inspired me most in this regard was the psychologist and therapist whom I met in Hamburg, 2006. Dan Bar-On is his name. He passed away 2008. He started a group made up of sons and daughters of high-ranking Nazis. And then he invited sons and daughters of the ones who could flee Nazi Germany. They got together and shared their stories. That was a long time ago. But out of these stories came the willingness, the intentionality, the desire to take a conflict resolution like this to other countries. Like Ireland, where you had the Catholics fighting against the Protestants. To Israel, where you had the Israelites fighting against the Palestinians. To make up groups of people who just share their story. That provokes understanding. And it happened at the German church that there was one member who deceased recently who said, "I never talked to my neighbor who was Russian." But in the light of what's happening in this country, in the light of the divisiveness among people living in the United States, in this light, I went over for the first time and met my Russian neighbor. They shared their stories. And ever since, they had a sense of, we know each other. Knowing each other is the best thing that can happen. Whether it's through a letter, an email, whether it's through a phone conversation, whether it's through a coffee shared in a cafe somewhere, that is the best thing that can happen. In particular, if we think, oh, it's only one of those. You know, once in a while, I think we are left with the sense we are just too small and insignificant to make a real change in the world. That's not true. All of you here are unique. You bring something into this world which nobody else is able to do, because you are you. The problems of the world are huge, but together we are able to make a difference, to transform this world like a caterpillar is transformed into a butterfly. The 1.5 million children lost in the Holocaust did not perish in vain, because we are here and we remember. You can do your part in all of this. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.